I remember Oregon Trail 2 had FMV stuff in it,
Oh,
if I
interesting.
remember right. Yeah.
Oregon Trail 2. I know that it exists, but it's like, what? Son of
Oh,
Oregon Trail.
would do you still have that T-shirt that I got you?
Hell yeah. Yeah,
You
you've died of
died of
dysentery.
dysentery.
Because, yeah, you did.
But I actually heard today, coincidentally, that we that they're making a board game based on Oregon Trail.
I could get
Like
behind
it's
that.
basically Dark Souls, the board game.
I know, it's like roll the dice to see if you die. I want to cross the river. Roll the dice to see if you just lose an ox. Sorry, your ox broke its foot. You had to leave it behind. Like, god damn. Like, so much of Oregon Trail is just. There is a way to play it skillfully, but even so much of it is chance. Like,
Remember,
you're not beating it with your full party.
I
Like, you can beat
remember
it, but people are gonna die.
so many points not being able to find anything to hunt.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
and the
Like,
thing is, you can't even grind for food way early because it's not like
it
food.
goes bad.
Yeah, food goes bad. So it's like I killed 10,000 buffalo. Well, good job. You can only carry as
You
much
can't
as you
even
can
carry
carry.
back, you in that game, if I remember right, you can't even carry back a whole single buffalo.
No, and that makes sense. So like you're shooting all the animals because it's fun and it's the most gameplay part of the game, but you can only take so much of it with you, and only so much of that will last. So no, I'm sorry, you're starving later. You can't just grind for food and save it for later. That's not how real
And
life
everybody
works.
dies of like cholera and
Yeah,
everything.
or just like I said with the ox, like just breaks an ankle. It just happened, and like you're just watching your little wagon go down the map, and it's like, by the way, John broke his ankle. It's like, great. So that's one fewer person who could contribute. It's so rough. I mean, no, that really, that's one fewer person who could contribute. Like, it sucks.
Well, I think that's all I have in terms of video games. How about you?
I guess I have one more thing. I was
Oh
mentioning
yeah.
this to you shortly before we were recording, but well, actually, I could also tell you what I bought at Con Bravo because I bought a few games recently. So I bought a few at Con Bravo,
Oh, I
and
bought one in particular. I forgot.
oh, you did.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, what is it?
Oh, I got the Golden Sun game for 3DS.
Oh yeah, or regular DS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
For DS.
Dark Dawn.
I
forgot about
picking
that.
it- Like, pretty much fans of the series see that as a really big letdown as the very end of the series, but
Mhm.
I haven't played through any of them yet, and I kind of want to have the whole thing anyway. So
Yeah, at least for the Game Boy Advance games, you should have both because I remember seeing from our friend Luminaire that there's some sort of power you can get that transfers from the first game to the second.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not that you would anyway, but if you care about all the little stuff like that, you should not start on game 2. You'll be missing out on a potential little power. It's kind of like
for sure.
it's kind of like Shenmue 2, like some of your martial arts moves transfer from the first game if you have the memory card stuff going on or
Well,
the VMU.
I do know that the characters from the first game end up being the bad guys of the second game, so
That is the coolest.
yeah. So I don't know anything else other than that, but I did hear that was one of the coolest things about the second game.
I love stuff like that because it's really rare. But anyway, as far as the games I bought some stuff before Con Bravo and some stuff, at Con Bravo. So the stuff I bought at Con Bravo, I want to say I got 3 things. Right. One of them was King's Field 2, which I've just never seen before in real life. So now I have all the King's Field games. I have 1 and 2.
You haven't even seen my copy of it?
If I have, I might have glanced over it, but I didn't like pick it off the shelf and go like, oh, let's look at Kingsfield 2. But I have Kingsfield 1 and 2 for the PS1.
You mean Kingsfield 3?
Yeah, there's a Japanese only one. So I got Kingsfield 1 and 2, parentheses, American, for the PS1, and then Kingfield's like Ancient City or Ancient Gate, whatever it's called, for the PS2.
Forgotten City?
Maybe you're right. So now I've completed the Kingsfield trilogy, but if you want to go Japanese, then I guess quadrilogy. I don't have the Japanese one.
I do.
Well, la-di-da. No, actually, that's really...
Isn't that special?
Yeah, I mean, that actually is really cool. I'd like to look into that. And by the way, for those of you who do not know what Kingsfield is, it's made by From Software. It's basically the Souls games before the Souls games, but like clunky as hell because they're in the first person on the PS1.
Even harder to play and even more bullshit than
Yeah,
than the Souls
I mean,
games.
the new Souls games aren't hard to play. They're just hard to do well in. But, like, with the old PS1 games, like, have fun. And I also picked up, I completed the Suikoden series because I got one on disc. I have two on PSN because I'm not paying a freaking $140 for it. I have 3 and 4 for the PS2 and Tactics. So I finally, at Con Bravo, bought 5 because that one's become elusive lately for the PS2. And by the way, 4 and 5 I do not think are on PSN, so you kind of have to find those.
Only up to 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3 are on PlayStation Network. And by the way, it's a good thing 3 is on the PlayStation Network because there's a memory. We were just talking about memory data transfer, but there's actually memory data transfer from Suikoden 2 to 3, which is interesting because it's from a PS1 game to a PS2 game. So you would actually put the PS1 memory card into your PS2. But with the PlayStation Network, like if it's all downloaded, you could still make that work. But if for some reason 3 were not on PSN, then you'd kind of be stuck with that memory transfer thing if you cared about that. So it's cool that those are on there. But but 4, 5, and Tactics you gotta find. And just really quickly, the other Suikoden game I got was the one Terracrease for the DS, which I know very little about, but I was intrigued because I heard it gets really just messed up, like dark and twisted.
It has a really great story.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that just because. So I've completed the Suikoden series. And before I get to what I was buying elsewhere, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, did you see what PSN put up recently as part of its PS2 classics?
No.
It's kind of relevant. It's not like super relevant, but it's kind of relevant.
Sure.
They put up Grandia 3, which is
Jeez.
a really great game.
Interesting.
It's one of those games that people forget about, but a lot of people loved when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play the Grandia games because I have the first one on PS1.
Mm-hmm.
I have the second one for Steam, which is apparently the best version of Grandia 2.
Okay.
They kind of like they take the Dreamcast version and they kind of like even clean it up even more.
Sure.
So was really cool, and then apparently the third one's really great too. On top of that, so I want to play that.
Sure. And by the way, I actually don't know about the DS Suikoden, like Terracrease's standard price. I just kind of picked it up because I saw it. But I know that Suikoden 5 I paid about what you would pay like on eBay for it. Like I didn't get screwed over by like convention prices. The guy had it like just about what it would cost online, maybe more by like a couple of bucks. So that was as good a deal as any, plus no shipping. So that wasn't bad. The other things I got were actually a little before Con Bravo. Someone on Twitter was selling some games, and I actually got really, really good deals. I got Pop Full Mail. There are 2 versions of Pop Full Mail. One of them is for what? The Super Famicom?
3 versions.
3, excuse me. So one of them was on what, Super Famicom, I think?
There is one on PC 98.
Oh my god, okay. I definitely wouldn't have known about that.
Well, it's a Falcom game, so you gotta think it has to be on PC somewhere.
Yeah.
Sega CD and Super Famicom, and they're all 3 different games.
Yeah, they're not
the
ports.
Thing.
Yeah, they're different, completely different. So
it's kind of like what they did with Ys 4. There's like 4 different versions of Ys 4, and they're all different games.
But yeah, I got the Sega CD one, and I also got,
which is the only one that got an English release, by the way.
Right, and I also got the what we now know as Final Fantasy VI. But Final Fantasy 3 on the Super Nintendo, and I just got like really good deals on those. So
how much did you pay for Pop Full Mail, if you don't mind me asking?
Pop Full Mail was complete in box, although box. You know, Sega CD has those plastic cases, but the case.
Pop Full Mail is an extremely expensive game.
Yeah,
it's one of the rarest games for the system.
Yeah, it's like it's below Snatcher, but it's like right up there with Snatcher, kind of.
Yeah.
But the case was damaged, but that's okay. If I really want to, I could just pick up some, $5 Sega CD game and just swap cases, because the cases are very interchangeable, like Sega Saturn.
Oh, yeah.
So,
you can do that.
But like the disc looks good and the manual looks good. So It was going to be sold for 125, but
Wow, that's a steal.
I know, but I got it with FF3, and like just to make a round number, the person took it down to 120. So it's like that's ridiculous.
Jesus, that game's like a $250 game.
Yeah, and well,
Wow.
Final Fantasy 3 was arguably a better deal because it was obviously the game. The box is in unbelievable condition. The manual, it's not torn, but some of the pages are really bent up because it's a thick manual. So I can tell, like I can almost certainly tell that when you're closing the box, when you're folding it in, it looks like it caught the manual bottom of its pages a little bit and like
Sure,
bent them
sure.
in each other. But that's about it. And it was missing the map. So it was missing the map / poster, but it was box, box, game, and manual for 40, which is insane.
Oh yeah.
And I actually did buy the map separately on eBay for 30, but like 70 for complete in box FF3 is freaking amazing. So I made off like a bandit.
Yeah, I mean, just on Popful Mail alone, you got like the deal of the century.
Yeah, it
because-
was $160 for Popful Mail plus FF3, and that's less than the cost of Popful Mail. That's less than the cost of freaking Final Fantasy 3.
Like I said to our viewers earlier in an earlier episode, I am a huge Sega CD fan, just because I'm a Sega dork in general. But like, I love some of the better games during that era for Sega CD. So like, I pretty much have everything that I could ever want for it.
But do you have Citizen X? There's my question.
I do not and do not care.
I kind of want to get that for its stupid FMVs. They're so stupid. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm making myself laugh.
No, it's all right. But I have all the big games for it, but like Popful Mail is probably the third most expensive game that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Oh, what's number 2?
KO Flying Squadron, which is a shmup. It's a shoot 'em up.
I've heard of it.
Snatcher's like a $400 game.
Yeah,
days.
Snatcher. Yeah, back when I bought Snatcher, its standard value was like 300, but it's gone up even past that.
Yeah, I can't even believe that it's selling. It's up there with Earthbound in terms of like how much it's, and I guess it has the same kind of cultural cachet that Earthbound would have. So I kind of understand that they're like,
yeah, thank God Earthbound's on the Virtual Console, by the way.
They're kind of like contemporary bedfellows in that sense, is in that they're story-driven games by auteurs that are really good, and that there aren't enough copies for people nowadays.
Yeah, and in both cases, nobody knew what they were when they came out, and Earthbound, even when it came out, was expensive by Super Nintendo standards because it had that giant box and came with its own guide and stuff. So people were like, no thanks, and like only now was it kind of like, oh, I should have picked up a copy.
I still can't believe that I got a complete, like, perfect copy of Snatcher for $75. Even back then, I thought that was expensive because it was at the dawn of like internet trading of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I just popped onto a forum and said, "Hey, does anybody have a copy of Snatcher they would like to sell?" The guy comes up and goes, "Hey, I'll give it to you for like $75. I just want you to have it so you can play it."
Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome, but like that would never happen these days. Like,
Yeah, when I got Snatcher, it was considerably more expensive, but my copy of Snatcher is missing the box art, so like the manual kind of makes its own box art. You know, it's got the clear glass case, but I'm missing like the removable art with like the back of the box summary and stuff like that. So I basically have blank case, disc and manual. That was a game where the retro game store was having trouble paying its bills, so they were like, okay, we're gonna put out deals on our most expensive games. So they had like the American copy of freaking Cotton for like the TurboGrafx.
Oh jeez, yeah, that's another expensive one.
Yeah, you have like the Japanese one.
There's no U.S. version of any Cotton game, to my knowledge.
Oh, well, okay, maybe I'm just mistaken. Well, whatever. They had Cotton anyway.
Yeah.
So they had that, and they had Snatcher, which was going for $300 for the longest time. And like everyone wants Snatcher, but do you really want to pay $300? So eventually they were like, well, we got to pay our bills. So they took it down to $200, And like that's still more money than I'm comfortable with, but like at the same time I really did want Snatcher, and like I'm not getting a better deal than that. Like so it's basically now or never. So I don't like spending that much money, but like this is my chance. So I took it. And coincidentally, this is one of those retro game stores, because not all of them do this, but this one has an online presence. So they had made the post on Facebook, and they were just like, hey guys, here are our deals, because they were actually really cool about posting pictures and what their deals were if you called them up. So like I happened to be online when they posted, and I responded within like 2 minutes, and I was like, I will be there in like a half hour. And I was.
Well, coincidentally, that's where you were able to pick me up the Popful Mail strategy guide.
As a matter of fact, yeah, that wasn't bad either. And actually, that's where you got
I got Exile 2.
And
freaking steal, and Earthworm Jim Special Edition.
Yeah, that one, like, you kind of like accidentally took advantage of them, because the guy was looking up eBay to check prices, and there's nothing that says Earthworm Jim Special Edition. It's just like the Sega CD version. So like, but the Special Edition is just what the Sega CD version is called. So he's like, I don't know, like, what did he sell it to for? Something ridiculous, like 10 or 10. It was like 10 or
$20.
Yeah,
it was a disc only, but like even disc only, that game.
It's like 80, 90. Yeah, and like, and my big deal, because
oh yeah, and he sold me Exile, and he must have thought it was the first Exile, because like it doesn't say specifically that it's Exile 2.
Yeah.
So like it says like it's Exile in the subtitle. I forget what the subtitle is, but he just looked up Exile, and he's just like, $40. That's like a $300 game.
Yep, and my deal, which wasn't quite as good as this, but I was really happy about it because I had nostalgia for it, is I don't know if anyone knows about this game. Maybe more so now that it's released on GOG and I think Steam, but we've been talking about shoot 'em ups for a little while, the games where you're the plane shooting horizontally or vertically like a million other planes. Well, there was one released for Windows, which, when does that happen? Raptor Call of the Shadows. That's a game that I think I had shareware on one of those discs that have 1,000 shareware games. And I was just like, oh, this game's super awesome. So I had this nostalgia for it. I'm not even a shoot 'em up guy, like, but I'll make an exception for Raptor because I just kind of grew up with it. And I saw that they had a sealed, for God's sake. Like, how did that happen? Sealed, like, complete in-box CD-ROM version, because there was a floppy and there was a CD-ROM. And I was just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So like I picked that up and I was like, how much is this? And the guy was like, he didn't even look it up, because it's like here's the thing with PC games, like nobody cares about them anymore, like old PC games, because
there's certain ones that
there are for collector's value, but like a lot of PC games you have a lot of difficulty running it at best. Like some of them just don't run. So like PC games in retro game stores are actually really hard to find in general. You have to find like the store that sells PC games,
and most of them they just have garbage. They don't have like the really good ones you would want anyway.
Yeah, and that's usually the case here too, because that's just how that works. But this guy didn't even look it up. He was like, well, normally it'd be like $5, but it's sealed, so 10. I'm like, are you okay? So I got that so fast.
Yeah, there were some good finds to be had at that particular shop. I mean, I still have those. It's not like I'm like running off to the bank and ripping somebody off. I have those games now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, and this isn't even a good deal. This is just a regular deal. But I remember being really happy. Like, this is the only place I've ever seen Juggernaut for the PS1. Because I remember looking up like a list of like horror or dark themed games you should play, and I was like, oh, maybe there's stuff I haven't heard of.
Oh, you mean the best character in X3, The Last Stand?
No. So but like so there was like one of those lists of like, oh, horror games you maybe never have heard of. Like that's where I heard of like White Day and Sayano Uda, and they had Juggernaut, and I'm like, what? So like I just saw it lying around, so I was like, oh cool. Like this isn't even anything to brag about regarding a deal. I probably paid what it was worth, but it was just like, who has I've never seen before or since Juggernaut for the PS1. So it's just like, huh. Like at some point I would love to do, like, it doesn't happen often, but sometimes I'll do like a themed set of Let's Plays. Like, let's just do a whole bunch of Silent Hill games, or let's just do a whole bunch of Suda51 games in a row. At some point I would like to do a bunch of games that,
like D.
Yeah, like horror games you
Creature Shock and
Creature Shock. But I would like to do a bunch of like horror games you've never heard of, but yeah, just like horror games you've never heard of, like Juggernaut and Martian Gothic. And at some point, I would also like to do games that are generally regarded as crap but really aren't. You just have to like know what you're getting into, like Castlevania 64 and like Star Fox Dinosaur Planet, because the game's not bad. It's just the worst Star Fox game they could have possibly made.
Well, a lot of that stuff has to center around like expectations.
That's what it is. People are like, Star Fox with a GameCube? Oh my god! And it's like, what the hell is this? But it's not a bad game.
It was like Luigi's Mansion. Everybody ragged on that game for the entirety of the GameCube's life.
Oh, I actually didn't when I first got it. I was like, this is kind of cool.
I mean, there were individuals who loved it, but there were people all over the internet.
Well, no, I get that, because Nintendo always opens with a Mario game, and boy, this was not that.
Yeah, but it's an awesome game.
Hell yeah.
Fun. So like, there's also like a lot of bandwagoning. Like I feel like
Silent like
that somebody else has.
This is the one that I always bring up, and I think you're probably getting tired of it. But Silent Hill Homecoming, the entire internet hated that game, and it's like, guys, how many of you actually played it? There's no possible way that this many people played Silent Hill Homecoming. Like, because how many people played Silent Hill Homecoming? And like, is it flawed? Hell yeah. But like that is a solid game if you can overlook its emphasis on combat and its really stupid, confusing gore with horror, because gore is not freaking horror, gore is gore. But like, one of the better Silent Hill stories in my opinion. And monster designs. I can't wait
to play it, actually. I want to get through Origin so I can get to it.
Yeah, and you gotta get through 4.
Oh yeah, I'm 4.
4, you might even want me to play that. That game's just not fun. Like, it's a good game, but it's just like, like actually playing it, it's like, alright.
I am okay with watching somebody play it.
Yeah, I'll happily play 4.
Because you know about all the intricacies of it too. So.
At this point, most. Embarrassingly enough, I actually had to like, sometimes in my Let's Plays, I'll fade to black and fade back in, because like I kept screwing something up, or I couldn't figure out what to do. I actually had to, even though I'd beaten the game multiple times before, I actually had to like check a fact for like one particular point of the game, because I like didn't see a door that was there the whole time, and I'm like, where do I go? Like, this sucks.
As far as video games go, do you have anything else for the good of the order?
That I think kind of runs my my video game tap dry at this point as far as news goes.
Well, having said that, I did want to give everybody an update on my Jaws presentation that I was talking about.
Oh, did you do it?
Well, what I did was I presented to the librarian.
Oh, you did. You did tell me that. Yes.
I didn't do my actual presentation to a class of people, but I showed him what I was coming up in terms of like a curriculum, if you can call it that. So I just wanted to tell people what I'm going to be talking about in this talk, the cinema studies talk, because I not only am I really passionate about video games, but I'm really passionate about film.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get this opportunity to get on my soapbox and talk to you about what my thought process is in creating this class, because I think a lot of people will be interested in it, and it's also kind of a plug for the class. So, if anybody lives in the area, or that kind of thing, or will want to watch the video of it later. So, for anybody who hasn't listened before, I am being asked by a local public library to do a cinema studies class to teach adults or on the finer points of cinema. So what I'm going to be doing for my first one, I really wanted to come up with a movie that I thought was really good to watch on its own, but also really good to study actively once you find out that it has a lot to it. So I picked Jaws because it's a popular movie. It's by a well-known director, and anybody who is a big cinema studies fan who hasn't seen it may want to get this under their belt. A lot of times, you know about the classics, but you've never actually seen them.
Oh yeah,
So
like that's me with Citizen Kane, for example.
you need to get on that. But
Yeah, and like I've been showing Mr. Ryu 45 classics he hadn't seen, like The Princess Bride, and classic, but like Big Trouble in Little China. Like there's some movies that you just kind of should see. He still needs to see Alien.
Yeah. Well, funny that you should say that because that's coming up. But anyway,
Wait, Alien?
Yeah, but I'll get to that.
Yeah, later.
So we can always watch some Orson Welles goodness over at my place, and I could teach you a little bit about what he did that made those movies so special.
Yeah, I've seen certain shots. I know it was a very artsy film in terms of how it was filmed. Like, I remember seeing a shot of like a super close-up of like glasses, and I don't mean the kind you wear. I mean like more than one glass, like on a bar counter, but what's actually happening is in the background. So it's kind of like, whoa, normally you focus on the people, but this time you're focusing on objects, and you have to pay attention to the people, and that just kind of hadn't really been done before. Like,
yeah, and
like
there's
now
a
it
lot
might
of
look a little pretentious, but it was really like very forward-thinking back then.
I mean, Orson Welles was like the most pretentious person ever, but like,
oh god, you're such pests.
watch out, Unicron. Calm yourself.
I'm trying to give, like, I can't give you what you want. Like, I'm sorry. I'm doing what I can with what I have.
Yeah, he's actually referencing a real rant that he had towards the end of his life when he was a nutcase. But
Animaniacs parodied it.
Yeah. But he invented a lot of cinematic language that we still use today.
Mm-hmm.
And also like just certain things like lighting, certain types of lighting he invented or perfected in using for the use of tone.
Yeah, and there was even the line, or the bit at the very beginning of the movie, the most famous part where like he goes like Rosebud and drops the glass. Like there's a super close up of his mouth saying Rosebud, and like you didn't need to do that, but like it's an interesting technique, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. But that's Citizen Kane. I want to talk about Jaws here,
of course.
So what I ended up doing was I came up with a PowerPoint presentation for the class, and I did all kinds of things. Like I didn't want to just have it as studying the film as literature. I also wanted to do an education on it. So I am also going to be telling the class about when it was released, how much money it made, and why the cultural impact of it, and who starred in it, and everything. Did you know that the movie's based on a book? I didn't know there was a Jaws book.
I knew there was a book, but I don't know if I knew which came first.
Well, the book was released and was a huge #1 bestseller at the time.
Okay.
So people knew about Jaws. It was like a really popular book. But there are a lot of differences from the book to the movie, as you probably would think.
That happens.
Yeah. But in particular back then, now they're usually a lot more conscious of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because people complain about it.
That's the thing, there are purists.
This ended up being one of those movies that's kind of like Forrest Gump. Have you ever... did you hear about the book that Forrest Gump is based off of?
I don't remember how it ended, but I remember the end was just batshit crazy.
Well, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about even the characterization of Forrest Gump is wildly different.
Okay.
Like in the movie, he is like the ultimate like innocent person.
Okay.
He's somebody that is infinitely lovable. He's like the best of humanity, even though he's not the smartest person. He's like the best in humanity. He's like an infinitely forgiving, loving person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the book, it's not so much. He's a much meaner person.
I think I did hear about that, actually.
So Jaws is very similar in that the characters are much more endearing in the movie rather than in the book.
Like Jurassic Park.
Well, yeah, very much so.
Hammond was a piece of shit in the book.
Oh yeah, he's awful.
And he's like the most lovable guy in the movie.
Oh yeah, and he's everybody's grandpa.
Yeah.
Well, that's a signature of Spielberg. He knows how to make lovable characters.
Yeah.
He's really good at that. For whatever reason, he can really bring out the warmth in a lot of different types of characters.
Sure.
And that's one of his hallmarks. In fact, I would say. But it's kind of hard to spot a Spielberg movie. He doesn't have a lot of the idiosyncrasies that like somebody like a Quentin Tarantino film. Like I could tell I'm watching a Quentin Tarantino movie when I'm watching it
immediately.
But Spielberg kind of he's made so many movies that I think that he may have like themes that he touches on like pretty frequently, like fatherhood. Is one that he particularly touches upon quite a bit. But his directing style varies wildly depending on the genre.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think it's like, I brought up Schindler's List in an earlier podcast. That's a lot different than something like Jaws. I mean, you would expect it to be, but still, I'll give you another instance. Like something like Saving Private Ryan is a lot different than Schindler's List, and it's about virtually the same kind of topic.
Yeah, just
it's about a different. It's about a different point of view, but it's about the same war. You'd think it at least would have some commonality, and it really, Schindler's List is a much more artistic film.
Yeah.
Than Saving Private Ryan is. Saving Private Ryan is actually kind of like an action movie almost. I would say that it is. With a lot of tragedy in it, but it's still an action film. There's a lot going on in it. There's a lot of tense moments and things like that. But getting back to that, like this movie took only $8 million to make, but it was a lot of money back then. It was 1975, and it was over budget, and it was late, and it was only his second full theatrical movie. Think about that. Like Spielberg was an unknown. Like the movie that he had made before that was a flop, and nobody talks about these days. So, and get this, it's a PG movie because there was no PG-13 rating.
Well, yeah, it's like the first Indiana Jones was PG, and if you were to re-release that today, it would definitely get the 13.
Actually, there's a quick bit of trivia. It's pretty much because of Spielberg that there is a PG-13 rating.
Oh, that's amazing. Because Indiana Jones 1, you got like people getting their faces melted off. Like it's just PG rating. It's like, oh my god.
He got a ton of pressure from a lot of parents and stuff from he produced Gremlins. So Gremlins was one of the movies, and also Temple of Doom was the movie he actually directed. Those two movies in particular got people to really put a lot of pressure on him. Like, oh, these should be R-rated.
Yeah,
you're putting too much violence in
Temple
movies.
Temple of Doom was PG, and like a man rips a heart out of a man's chest. It's like, oh my god.
Just to give
that's a
you
Mortal
guys
Kombat fatality. It's just PG.
Just to give you our viewers and listeners an idea of what this was like. A movie like Airplane, which had like full frontal nudity in it, even for a brief second, actually twice in the movie, it was still a PG-rated movie. In order to get an R rating back then, you needed to show some really graphic violence or have some really overt sexual content. And it wasn't given to many films. You had stuff like
RoboCop,
Bonnie and I'm just trying to think. Yeah, RoboCop was later. That was in the 80s.
Okay, fair enough, but that is absolutely an R in terms of just how brutal it was.
The Godfather is the only thing I could think of.
That one was
era.
Iconic for how violent it was when it got to the scene where you're just
the toll booth scene.
Yeah, you're just shooting a guy for an hour with all of his what are they called, squibs?
Yeah. They actually almost killed him.
Yeah, that stuff hurts.
Yeah, those squibs are no joke. They're fake. They're tiny explosions going off all over your body.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, squibs are like what makes it look like blood's popping out of a dude when he gets shot.
Exactly.
Like you just wear little blood packets that they explode.
But yeah, so this is a PG movie, even though it has a bunch of gore in it. Not like a ton, but there's still a fair amount of gore
enough that it's
movie.
Absolutely not rated G.
Yeah. Nowadays, it would never be a PG movie. It would be a PG-13 movie for sure, at least. There might even be instances where it might even be considered an R movie, but that's a stretch. I would say that it's a PG-13 movie,
Yeah.
but I think that in itself is an interesting discussion that I'm going to have with them because to give them context. So what was so great about this movie, and what I'm going to go over it, is that it was a movie that transcended genres at the time, and movies didn't really do that back then. It was a horror movie, a thriller, an adventure movie, and a comedy all at once. It wasn't like a slapstick comedy or anything like that, but it had a lot of comedic moments in it, more so than most kinds of movies like that. So it really paved the way to become the template for the current summer blockbuster. Like The Avengers is like the best example that I can think of that uses this kind of template. The first Avengers movie is basically like that to a T. It is an adventure movie. It has some horror elements with the Hulk scene.
And there are jokes everywhere, especially with
Tony
Stark.
They're comedies. Yeah, for sure. They are definitely adventure and action films. So you can't even argue about that. So they're basically, he made this movie that was appealing to like a large swath of people because of that. And it manages to be a fantastic horror movie without having to really be a horror movie. It's really interesting. Like the way he filmed it was out of complete necessity, which is what I wish some movies would be like nowadays. Like some of the best film moments in history have been because of constraints of some kind, either budgetary or there just wasn't a technology for it, so a new technology was invented, or they invented a new shot for something. That kind of thing isn't really done as much these days because a lot of the big movies have the budget for it, or they have CG.
That's the thing. If you're doing CG, then you can invent whatever shot you want.
So what ended up happening was they had 3 or 4 mechanical sharks for the film, and the sharks continuously malfunctioned because one of the things that Spielberg insisted on doing, which was a ballsy thing for a young director that didn't have much credibility, was he insisted that they film in the actual ocean, which is insane. Like, anybody who's ever made a film will tell you that that's nuts, and I'll tell you why. Filming in the ocean, everything needs to be controlled when you're making something like this for consumption to make it look real.
Right.
And also so you can have so you don't have to wait on the elements in order to do your filming, because you don't want to be held up, because that's time is money in those situations. You only have certain amount of time to film, to have all that crew out there for everybody to be doing their work. So usually ocean movies are filmed like on big pools or lakes, or even like
Titanic was a big pool, I believe.
Yeah. Most of them are very controlled environments because you don't want to have to wait for low tide or something, or
Not to mention, if any of you ever fall in the ocean or whatever, like, you don't have to worry about it being freaking freezing ocean temperature.
Yeah. You need it to be the right time of the year.
Like in Titanic, it was actually very very warm, maybe even hot water, whereas Jaws, like, you're falling in the ocean.
And not only all that, but you need to have all these like sub-ships going around the ship that's being filmed in order to get lighting and stuff like that on it.
Yeah.
So it's and like for somebody to hold the boom mic and things like that. So I know it when you watch the movie, it doesn't look like it was that hard. It is extremely hard. Like that's why Waterworld. I'm pulling that out of my butt. Waterworld was so hard to film because that was done on the ocean too.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah, and they built like this big rig and things like that.
Yeah, Waterworld was like freaking Mad Max on the ocean.
So he made this movie, and none of the stuff worked. So he had to come up with a way to represent the shark, and also the sharks didn't look good. They didn't look realistic. So what he did was he decided that he was going to use the camera was the shark. It was all implied.
Yeah,
And
you're getting a shark's first-person perspective.
and also the shark was implied by the theme that would be playing.
And even the theme was ballsy.
Like
up until it got going, it's freaking 2 notes, and it's like, are you joking? But when you actually see it in the movie, it's like, it nails it.
Yeah, and that was also before John Williams was a really popular. He's the most popular movie composer of all time now.
Yeah.
Especially because he did Star Wars on top of this.
Yes.
And every big summer blockbuster after this. I mean, he's done so many of them. The Harry Potter theme, I think, is him.
Nice.
Jurassic Park is for sure
Absolutely.
him. I think Forrest Gump too. So he's actually scored every single one of Steven Spielberg's movies post Jaws, except for 2 of them. So just to show you what kind of skill he has and what kind of relationship he has.
Yeah.
So anyway, so all of this horror is implied stuff. You have people dying, people getting sucked into the water. Like the boats are being attacked without even the shark even showing up until over an hour after the film, I think, starts. I think it's an hour and 20 is when you first actually see the shark.
Mm-hmm.
So he took these ideas from Psycho, believe it or not, because he was a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of implied horror and implied violence in that movie without actually showing.
That was done really
violence.
well. The cuts are so last second that you see the violence even though it isn't there.
It's amazing, and he took that and he ran with it, and it worked out extremely, extremely well. So it was a bitch to film. His crew almost mutinied.
Jeez. And it's like an actual mutiny because they're on a boat.
Yeah. His bosses were constantly saying that he would never work this in this town again, that kind of thing.
Oh my god.
And the movie ended up making domestically $260 million in $1975.
Yeah, that's unfathomable.
On top of an $8 million budget, and $471 million worldwide.
Nice.
That's $500 million in 1975.
That's absurd.
with a budget of $8 million. Think about that. No wonder he was able to get work again after this.
Right.
I mean, come on. And so I'm going to teach all about that, and I am also going to talk about the genre there. And I'm also going to give the people watching it a worksheet with different themes and symbols on them to look out for, and I want them to talk about it.
Nice.
Like one thing that I have all my themes listed here that I've already thought of. Man versus nature is the obvious one, but I want you to think about it. Think about this. The shark is actually defending his territory.
That's the thing. Like it's not like a sci-fi horror where it's not like the modern goofy sci-fi original movies like Sharktopus where the shark just comes onto land and attacks people. Like it's a shark. Like if you don't want to get bitten by a shark, then stay out of the water. But this whole movie, people really want to go to the beach and go swimming. So it's like, well...
Well, actually, the whole movie is based around a human problem of needing the tourism in order to keep the town afloat, and also the greedy mayor.
That's what I was going to mention. Like, obviously I know you've mentioned that in reality, man is the villain, but stereotypically, Jaws, the shark, is the villain, but also the mayor.
Well,
because he's getting more people into trouble by making them keep the beaches open. And it's like, dude, Jaws is there.
In the book, you actually get even more context, and the reason why the mayor is like insisting that the beaches stay open is because he has all these shady deals that he welched on,
Okay.
and that he needs the money for.
That's pretty brutal. So
So
in the movie,
actually,
he's just a dick, and that's it.
in the book, actually, man is the issue, not the
Okay.
shark.
That's interesting.
But it's kind of funny to look at it that way, and I want people to look at it that way because if you are just watching the movie, you say obviously the shark's the problem. It's actually it's a lot more complex than that. We're encroaching on his territory. We don't need to be out there, but we do because of our own existence.
Right.
So I do want to talk about that. So there is a man versus man debate there too. Fatherhood and masculinity is a huge thing because you could actually say that in the movie, it's all about fathers and men trying to protect their family,
Mm-hmm.
because the only people that are ever attacked are women and young children.
Oh yeah, like especially that super famous just opening scene.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, there are only two real sexualized beings in the whole movie, and that first girl is definitely one.
Yeah, it's like a freaking Friday the 13th victim.
But also Roy Scheider's wife is actually a sexualized being. She actually talks about like wanting to fool around with him, which you don't typically see in the typical mother character.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty all right for that movie. And keep in mind, people, when I'm talking about masculinity and femininity, I'm not making a judgment. I'm just going strictly by like cinematic studies and gender theory and things like that. I'm not making a judgment call. I'm not saying
Yeah, this is
men
what
should
it takes to be
protective over
man.
women.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is like the
I'm not saying-
perspective of the movie itself from the 70s.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a way of looking at it. It's a lens. It's not the right way to look at it.
Mhm.
So I'm also going to say that because I'm not trying to offend you.
That's the whole thing. Yeah.
I'm one of the most understanding and liberal people around when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But I do want to get into that. But
Yeah, this movie paints a picture. Here is what it is a picture of.
Exactly. I'm also going to have sexuality in there. For sure, the sexualized woman is preyed upon, just like in any other classic horror movie.
Yep.
So I am going to point that out, even though it's not I don't know if it's a trope that I particularly like, but it's something that is there in movies, and you do need to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also the education versus experience debate. So this goes actually into another study of masculinity. There are three guys on this ship, on the Orca in Jaws. There's Roy Scheider's character. There is Richard Dreyfuss's character and Robert Shaw's character. They are all different interpretations of how a man could be. They are very much representative of different kinds of like Jungian archetypes almost. You have Robert Shaw, who is the old man who's experienced. You have Richard Dreyfuss, who is an educated man, but he doesn't have any experience. And then you have Roy Scheider, who is the guy in the middle who needs both of those things in order to be the action man. So I'm going to talk about that.
Sure.
And there's also the conquering over fear, and that's that's actually one of the main conflicts in the movie is Roy Scheider trying to get over his character trying to get over his fear of the ocean in general and the fear of the shark in order to battle it because he's the only one who can. And I also have the symbolism, the young woman in the first scene, the boat, the shark. The shark is representative of nature and men trespassing on nature's territory, and also the greediness of man can be seen in the shark. Children, money, the air tank. Think about that. the air tank, spoiler alert, that kills
Oh, they have to shoot it, and the giant
kills
explosion.
Jaws. That they can only kill Jaws if Jaws isn't in its own territory, like he's out in the air.
Yeah.
Is the only way they can kill him. They can't kill him when he's underwater. So that's something to be studied there too. But they also kill him with an air tank, which is containing air. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of fitting. You might just say an air tank's an air tank, but I read into it even more. Like his weakness is it's anything that's outside of his realm.
Sure.
There's also you've seen Jaws, right?
I've seen most of it. I've seen parts.
Okay. One of the most famous scenes is Robert Shaw talking about his experience on the Indianapolis, which was a real World War II ship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard about it.
I don't think so.
Okay, so this was a top secret mission for this ship during World War II to carry one of the bombs that was dropped on Japan.
Mm-hmm.
On the return trip for this ship, it was torpedoed, and people had to abandon ship, and the poor soldiers didn't have any way, had to wait a long time to be rescued, and their ship had since sunk, and they were all getting eaten by sharks.
Mm.
And there were over 1,000 men on that ship, and there only ended up being around 300 by the time they got rescued.
God damn.
And that was a real thing that happened, and they inserted that into the narrative of Jaws, and that's why Robert Shaw's character hates sharks so much.
Yeah, he would.
Well, he's like, he's the Ahab figure.
Yeah, exactly.
So, sorry if I ruined Jaws for you, but this is such an old classic movie.
That's the thing. It's like saying Darth Vader is Luke's father. It's like, like there are people who don't know that, but it's ingrained enough into pop culture that you pretty much do.
But I wanted to talk about this because this is something that means a lot to me, and I wanted to bounce this off of you. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I also wanted to record the process of me thinking about it.
Of course.
And I think a lot of people will get a lot out of this kind of discussion, and they can have their own kind of discussion about Jaws as well. Also, you could tell me that I'm wrong. I mean, come up with your own interpretation because you're supposed to.
Can I just say that you're wrong and then not follow it up at all?
Yeah, you're wrong. No,
everything you said is BS. I'm sorry.
NES Jaws is the real Jaws.
Yeah. No,
Jaws Unleashed for the Xbox is the real Jaws.
Jaws 4, the one that roars and is getting revenge on its parents' murder, is the real Jaws.
Versus Michael Caine.
Yeah, what? Jaws 3D is the real Jaws because it enters the third dimension and it pops out of the movie screen. It's the most realistic you could get.
I wanted to get some dialogue on this, and I also want to show you what my process is in thinking about this stuff, and I also I think it's really interesting.
Absolutely.
And I also want to show you a different side of me that isn't just about video games.
The Jaws side.
The Jaws side. Yeah. So I put all this together, and then I also have movies that were heavily influenced by Jaws, and I'm going to show scenes from different movies.
Certainly.
Well,
the one we brought up on the phone, I think, was Evil Dead, the mysterious invisible monster that you only see from his point of view that chases Ash, and it's like, what is this?
It's amazing, yeah, and it's one of the best parts of the movie, if you ask me.
It's great because it leaves you with a sense of mystery and wonder. It's just like, no, seriously, like, after all the crap he deals with in the movies, like, the freaking immortal beings that come alive and want to swallow his soul, and like the cabin is going crazy, and he hates it, but he's leaving.
He's only truly afraid of the
whatever this thing is. He's just like,
thing.
Nope, like run, like. And here's the thing: the cabin itself and everything in it wants him dead. And he goes out into the woods and he sees whatever this is, and he dashes right back into the cabin. And it's like, oh my god, what?
See. Even though Evil Dead is really well known amongst like horror fans and people of like Bruce Campbell in general,
mm-hmm.
It's still not particularly in mainstream consciousness like something like Jaws is.
Well, I would say Ash versus the Evil Dead is probably helping with that.
Yeah, but that's still on an obscure network. I mean, it's on
Yeah,
Showtime.
yeah,
I mean, it's popular enough to get a second season, but
yeah,
it still only like fringe people still like that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
Especially the
And
first Evil Dead.
so it's more popular than it ever was, but it's still like my mom still doesn't know what Evil Dead is. She
Sure,
knows what
sure.
Jaws is.
Yeah,
She saw Jaws when it came out,
nice.
but Evil Dead's been around for a long time, and still a lot of people don't know what Evil Dead is. So, but I absolutely want to show that scene to be like, see, this came from Jaws.
Yeah.
Like absolutely came from Jaws. Like there's like Sam Raimi will tell you that this was heavily influenced by Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
Even the audio that's going on in that scene, where it just has like that ethereal screaming while it's
Yeah,
happening.
that was nuts.
But I'm also going to show Jurassic Park because the scene from Jurassic Park where Ian Malcolm sees like the puddle.
Oh, when the puddle ripples.
Exactly.
That was.
Because
Oh, was that the puddle or was that the cup of? It was a glass of water, right?
no, it's a puddle. The
Oh, there was
earlier
also a glass of water.
yeah, the glass of water is earlier in it.
Yes, that's
And
like in the car.
this is when he's lost the use of his legs, and he's
Okay.
in the back of the Jeep, and he sees the puddle.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So that was a foreshadowing. The cup was a foreshadowing to this scene.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was super
Um,
clever too.
so this is like the big scene in Jurassic Park, and it in a lot of ways is a kind of a spiritual successor to Jaws. It's made by Steven Spielberg and uses a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, it's humans tampering with things they don't understand.
Exactly, and
Like, don't worry, I can control all of nature. Like,
it's a domain they shouldn't be going into for all the wrong reasons. I mean, in the book, it's even more the same type of reason. It's just greed in the book. In the movie, it's more like I like dinosaurs and I want to share dinosaurs with
yeah,
people.
and you could even see how they mishandle it, like regarding how they feed it and things like that. Like no one, like the dinosaurs aren't taking the bait because it's tied up and not doing anything.
Exactly.
Like there's little things you could just tell are being mishandled, and when the park goes crazy, like nobody knows what to do.
Exactly. So I particularly want to show that because it also shows the evolution of that particular director.
Sure.
And in doing a similar type of movie, and also another summer blockbuster like that he followed up with. I mean, this is what he's known for. And I'm also going to show a clip from Tremors. Which is
yes.
Even though some of this stuff is corny, it's absolutely
freaking
like
amazing.
entertaining stuff.
One of my favorite
Like,
bits in that is when they blow up one of the graboids and like they just take out an umbrella and just all the guts just rain down on it and they wait until it's over, put the umbrella away. It's such a cartoon thing to do.
That movie is basically Jaws but in a desert. I mean that's really what it is.
But also more
yeah,
comedic. It's not a comedy, but it's clearly more comedic.
Oh no, it's a comedy. It's as much of a comedy as Evil Dead 2 is.
Okay, fair enough.
But there's Lake Placid, which is like
the giant alligator, I think it is.
Giant alligator in New York for some reason. Open Water, which is a serious, probably the first serious one I have here, which is absolutely influenced by Jaws. But imagine if you were stuck in Jaws, but you had no boat.
Yeah, there is a newer movie. I haven't seen it, but like The Shallows, where someone just got washed up on some like little rock island, and you just see a shark like circling it. It's like, well, here we are.
And I've also heard people. I looked this up online. This was a really interesting one that I hadn't even thought of before I saw. I was looking at movies that were influenced by Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these I came up with on my own. Like Evil Dead, I already put that on my list. Jurassic Park on my list. Tremors on my list.
Sure.
But like Lake Placid, I forgot about. Open Water, I forgot about too, and that's a particularly important one because it's realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a. Do you remember the movie Basic Instinct, or have you heard of it?
I haven't seen it, but I know it basically for that famous cross-leg scene that they did in Police Knots.
Yeah. So, that movie is essentially where the shark is the woman,
Okay.
and she's like punishing men around her. So that's a really interesting, like almost like a flip of the dynamic that's happening in Jaws.
They don't kill her with an air tank and blow it up, do they?
No, there's a sequel. Well, not that stopped Jaws from having a sequel, but
Yeah, right.
she's actually in the sequel.
Okay, yeah.
I've actually never seen Basic Instinct, but I know a lot about it. It's
Sure.
one of those classics that I know everything about. I just had never seen it.
Right.
So that famous scene that you're talking about has the guy who's played by Newman.
Oh, Wayne Knight.
Yeah, Wayne Knight.
Who was also in Jurassic
Also
Park,
in
by the
Jurassic
way.
Park.
Yeah. You didn't say the magic word.
I'm also going to end my presentation by showing a trailer for the original Alien.
Yeah, and by the way,
trailer.
gotta say that tagline in space, no one can hear you scream, like that is freaking brilliant.
So, just to give people context, this movie didn't come out all that much later than Jaws. It came out in 79, I believe, and it definitely takes a lot of inspiration from Jaws. It's like Jaws in space, trapped inside a spaceship. I absolutely want to show this as my next movie after Jaws.
Yeah, that movie's freaking. That movie holds up.
And I didn't want to show any particular scenes, so what I wanted to do, and I think I'm going to continue doing this, is at the end of every class, I'm going to show the theatrical trailer, so I don't ruin anything.
Yeah.
But also get my point across.
What's cool?
To the next movie that I'm going to be doing class on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what's cool is that in a way you're showing a trailer like for your next class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's like it's doing double duty, and I absolutely love that idea when it
like on the next class, like here it comes. Yeah.
And I want you guys to go ahead and watch the original theatrical trailer of Alien, even if you've seen Alien a billion times like I have. I had never actually watched the theatrical trailer. The theatrical trailer is terrifying.
Really?
It's awesome. Yeah, it's like I know all the scenes that it points out, but it has no dialogue.
Yeah, that can really help.
It is one of the most extremely effective trailers that I've ever seen, and I've only ever seen it since this week.
Actually, you know what that reminds me of? There's no time to do this now. We're getting toward time, but at some point we might even want to talk about particularly effective video game trailers, because some of them like really stuck with me.
Oh yeah, for instance,
Dead Space 2.
Killer 7.
I don't know if I ever saw trailers for that.
Oh no, not Killer 7. I'm sorry. The other one. Why am I not forgetting one of my favorite games?
No More Heroes?
No More Heroes is
Yeah.
That's a great trailer.
But yeah, we could get into that later, but some of those trailers kind of really stuck with me for a while.
The Zelda one that they just came out with.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, Dead Space 2, that was well, we'll get to it later. We're running out of time.
Actually, one of my favorites, believe it or not, was for Gears of War. Had a really.
Oh, I'm sorry, I blew it. Yeah, I totally was wrong. I meant Gears of War 2.
Oh yeah.
That familiar faces all around me, familiar faces.
No, that's exactly what I was.
That was amazing.
About. Yeah.
Really. My favorite video game trailer, without question, is Dead Island. Even though it grossly misrepresented the game, that trailer was a movie in and of itself.
Nice. I need to check that out.
Yeah, you do. If you haven't seen it, oh my god. We'll do that later, though.
Absolutely.
But anyway, like we are getting toward time. You had mentioned,
we did some damage here.
Yeah, well, you had mentioned off. I mean, I'm going to say camera, off mic,
off air.
Yeah, you mentioned off the air that you had wanted to try this. But did you have any questions for the listeners?
I guess I would say, would you like to ask us our opinion on a specific video game or movie and have us like talk about it?
Yeah, we might be able to pick up some of the comments from either from your SoundCloud links or my YouTube links, and we could just like maybe pick up a couple comments and try to answer them as best we can.
Yeah, I mean, and you could even ask us specific questions about other things,
Yeah, it could be
like our
whatever.
favorite
Like your
books or
your question, I
whatever.
suppose, is more of like a
But
guideline. But if you have something on your mind, go for it.
we can even talk about like the literary aspects of those kinds of things. So,
Sure.
like, if you'd like us to do like a little analysis on any any bit of literature or movie or video game, we would happily do it, and we would talk forever about it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do what we can. Like, I'm not saying I know every video game or movie ever made, but like
No,
we
but
do
we
have
could
a
still
wide
talk about it.
knowledge. Yeah.
We could still talk about it, even if I've never played it or watched it or
Oh
even
yeah,
read it.
we could
I
at the
could
very
still talk
least,
about
yeah,
it.
at the very least we could like Google it and talk about something relating to it if it's something we didn't know or whatever.
Absolutely. So we would love to have the fan mail regarding that, and
Absolutely.
I would love to hear what you guys thought. I'm gonna have probably some more specific questions as time goes on, but I want to see if this has any traction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yeah, I guess that is going to be about time. But
Yeah,
yeah, thanks a lot for having me, and for all the
absolutely.
listeners, thank you so much for listening. I mean, it really
Uh,
means a lot that people are paying attention to our rambly phone conversations.
yeah, and one more thing,
Hmm.
we do have an RSS feed now.
That's right.
Um, So the people that know how to use the inner workings of their iTunes will know how to place that manually into their iTunes,
Hmm.
so that way they have our episodes downloading every single time that they come out. However, I am in the process of getting sending in our approval for iTunes. Um, so that way you could just search for us on the iTunes store and download us. So if you have any other services like Stitcher, I think is a big one right now, for that kind of thing, you could certainly express that, and I will look into it.
Hmm.
But for now, we can do the manual stuff on SoundCloud and also the automatic stuff with iTunes very shortly. So have no fear. It will be easier to listen to us very soon. You must forgive us. We've never actually done this on our own before.
Yeah, I mean, lately, I've been just kind of trying to work like even the scheduling. I think we're starting to settle for Tuesdays, but it took a little bit of that. Like this has been very off the cuff for the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, and even let us know if you'd like us to even chop up the podcast even more. I'm sure like having it in two big chunks like it is right now is not a bad thing, for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, especially if you have it on like a playlist or something, you wouldn't even know the difference. But like a 2.5 hour podcast is all as one thing can be intimidating.
for sure, for sure. And so I think having two chunks like that is a good thing. So
Hmm.
I think we'll keep it like that unless somebody comments on that. And I will also be starting to add liner notes to every episode, so that way you know what subjects that we talked about in each
Oh,
episode.
that's awesome.
But that's going to take a little bit more work, so that might
Yeah,
take a couple weeks. And I will also get the format down so that way when we publish it, it'll already be done. That way I don't need to go back and do it.
sure, sure.
But we're working these kinds of things out. Be patient with us, but at least we have a better structure now. Even though we still meander, that's kind of the point.
Yeah,
And I also am kind of using this as our soapbox to talk about our creative processes. But I think that that's something interesting. So please give us feedback on that.
yes, please do.
All right, I think we did a bit of damage here, and
Hmm.
I think we can sign off until next time.
Yeah, until next time, everyone.
Have a great night.